We are Southern Illinois.
Off to Steffi, straightaway 13. House with 10 on the shot clock. House trying to use a side screen. To his right, baseline right, runner off the glass for 2. What a beautiful shot by Calron House. 8 in the second half. He had 11 in the first half. He's got 19 to lead all Salukis.
It's time for Saluki basketball.
Down the 9. Campbell by House with 8. Left wing with 7. With 6. Campbell to his right with 5. Schweiger on the perimeter with 4. With 3. Middle of the lane with 2. Low left block with 1. Lawson goes up with a shot as the cut shot expires. Clock is out. And Southern wins it. SIU wins it on the road. What a win. What a win.
Now, here is the voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin.
Salukis pull off the road sweep of Northern Iowa and Drake. A remarkable week on the road for SIU. It's only the third time that SIU has done that trip, that road swing, and it's going to be the second time that they come up sweeping the road stretch. It is so hard to do, especially when you factor in Northern Iowa was one of the hottest teams in the league heading into that game on Saturday night and their senior night to boot. To recap it all, is the Hall of Famer, Rodney Watson. I am Luke Martin. So great to welcome back in, everybody. No guests today, so it's just going to be us two, bickering back and forth. I wish we could have posted, the pre-podcast talk because, man, of all the numbers that we try to come through and give to you, Saluki Nation, the guy you see across from me still doesn't believe me. So, he wants to go off of feelings more than facts, but that's okay as we get this rock and rolling. Regardless, Coach Watson, we can agree on it was a great week for Saluki basketball last week to win 2 competitive games on the road, and even more so with Northern Iowa. I don't mean this to be disrespectful at all towards Drake. UNI's crowd was great, and they were really in the game. It was a smart crowd. They did all they could. You talk about recycling that energy to try to give their team energy in key moments and especially late. And, man, SIU finds a way to grit one out 59-57.
You're going to get a bunch of really important stats here in a little bit. But before we get into all that stuff, this isn't – I guess it's subjective, but it's really not. What Southern brought to Iowa for 80 minutes was the hardest I've seen Southern play all season long, and maybe for a while in seasons, but for sure for 80 minutes, it wasn't pretty, man. We're talking about turnovers and missed shots and all that stuff, but what was beautiful was how hard Southern played in Iowa for 80 minutes, and there's still no substitute for playing hard. And there's no great metrics. Ken Palm doesn't rank playing hard, and we used to have the play hard charts, but even that, it's hard to actually say exactly. I've said to you before, the real test is when you touch your jersey and it's sweating, it's soaking wet. Our jerseys were soaking wet in Iowa, and it was just beautiful to watch.
We talk about playing hard. I do think an area is Southern defensively. I mean, these numbers are impressive, Coach Watson, and we can continue to go into them. But right now, when you look at the Ken Palm adjusted defensive efficiency, 32nd in the country as of today. Now, if the season ended today and that was the final ranking for Southern's defense, the last time Southern had a defense that high was the NIT team in 2008. That team adjusted defensively was 25th in the country. Obviously, the year prior to that, which you say is one of, if not the best coaching job that you've seen, what Coach Lowry did with that group, get into the Sweet 16. That group was third in the country in adjusted defense efficiency. By the way, that number that year was 88.8. This group is at 99.9. So that really shows you the how good that unit was defensively. But also, I do think it's fair bringing that up of saying, man, and we've talked about this number. It's not new that you and I have been bringing up, and I know everyone wants to look at the win and loss record, and that's important because that is ultimately what you get gauged upon. But why Southern has a chance here down the stretch is because of that defensive number, and that no doubt proved to be true on Saturday in Cedar Falls.
Southern playing really good defense. And the last possession of all the possessions they played in Iowa over an 80-minute stretch, now that was a defensive stop, man. When you have to guard up to with 16.9 on the clock, and you know where that ball was going, man, Trey Campbell had it going in the second half. With the exception, he was being bothered. 6 turnovers by a terrific player. But 16.9 seconds of all the defense and all the numbers you're going to throw out, and they're all realistic. Man, it was evident that Southern can guard in that last 16.9 because that was, to that point in the season, the most important defensive play of the year at Northern Iowa. You talk about the fans getting into it and loud and energetic. That Campbell had to make the pass on to Swiger. Swiger really didn't get a shot off. You know, had that shot gone in, there'd been a lot more conversation about, you know, what went on. But, man, Southern is guarding well. Go back to the Drake game, and 3:10 to go at the end of the game when Davion Sykes gets a steal from Drake's leading scorer. Terrific player. Jalen Quinn, terrific player. And Jalen Quinn quit on the play once Sykes stole it from you. That wasn't an issue where Jalen Quinn's not a quitter. I'm not saying that. I'm not implying that. But he's been getting guarded for 37 minutes, and he'd had enough. I used to tell that story about we're playing Drake when Dr. Tom was coaching and Tony Young was wearing this dude out. And they went to the sideline and fell into the seats, and Tony got up clapping and smiling and saying some other things, and their kid has to be taken out of the game. I mean, for guys, you know, for Southern fans that really appreciate teams that play hard, you saw it. If you're a few of the great Saluki faithful, both, you know, they were at Drake and they're also at UNI, and man, our kids are playing hard on that defensive end, and I'm just so happy for them. They got rewarded in that last play against Northern Iowa.
Look, we all know that it's a different day and age, Coach Watson, and especially when I start mentioning these type of things, because well, let's just talk about the obvious elephant in the room when you talk about these type of things. You don't know who you're going to have, you know, from a year-to-year basis because of the climate you're in terms of the portal, in terms of NIL, and all those things. But we have said so many times on this podcast how I have to remind myself, how we have to remind ourselves about Calron only being a sophomore. I'm going to take it another step further. Rollins, sophomore. Drew Steffi, sophomore. You know, those are three guys who start, who play heavy minutes, that at times I feel like the expectation, and I'm not saying the expectation should be high. Those dudes have so much high expectation. I think you understand my point and why I'm bringing it up is it's just like, I mean, you're starting three sophomores, and yet those guys, like, I mean, Drew was outstanding. His shooting is what kept Southern in the lead, making those big threes. But he made his first 4 threes of the game, to a lot of other things that he brings to the table too. But man, I mean, like, you kind of just got to expand it, and then you throw in guys. See what Jaheim Weber's doing, and you know, Max Picard is still a really young player. I mean, like, there is a lot of young guys on this team that. You know, I'm not trying to push it too far down the road here, but you get what I'm saying. It's like if you can keep showing some improvement and let alone find some guys who these guys truly enjoy being around each other and find a way to keep them. But just in the here and now, man, I'm just so impressed by these guys because these are still really young players.
Jalen Haynes, a freshman.
Yes.
So you've got in your top 8, and Jaheim Weber's clearly moved himself into a top 8 player. When you trust him to be in the game against Bradley at the end, you trust him to be in the game against Drake and then Northern Iowa. He's a top 8 player. So to your point, when you take it a step further, there's another area you can really take a look at. You know, in the Drake game, Damien's on the bench, fouled out. It's been proven out that into the games, tight situations, probably best that while Prince is having some better moments and doing some good things, he's on the bench. Sykes is the only senior playing down the stretch right now at this group, with 2 freshmen, 3 sophomores, a senior with Prince and Damien that are in that group as well. And I'm really glad you brought that up. These guys have grown in leaps and bounds throughout this season, and they really trust each other. I mean, it's hard to trust a freshman. And I don't care what point in the season it is, but for Jalen and Jaheim to be trusted by his teammates, and you can hear it sincerely by Q, who I think is an upperclassman now anyway, but certainly by when the seniors talk about these young guys, it's very impressive.
How would you – I'm trying to figure out the best way to phrase it in terms of a question to you and also just speak volumes of the job that Calron has done this year. I mean, the ability to shot make that he can do down the stretch of games, that was on display. I'm not even really asking you to compare. I'm just saying, like, how would you assess the importance of what Calron is doing right now And what type of season are we seeing from a guy like him?
Coach made a great point. Ever since he's gotten through that midsection injury, where it's a groin or whatever, hammy or whatever he's dealing with, doesn't matter. He's obviously better, and he's kind of getting back to his self physically, but mentally he's a totally different player than when the season started, and all the way up to the point, even in the Drake game, where he really he lost his wits about where the game was on the last possession in a game we'd all like to have back, which we're never getting back. Couple things that impressed me. It's not like that guy's not on every scouting report. I mean, he's obviously back to the top, or one of the two with Rollins at the top of the scouting report. So they know they know how he scores. He's got that SGA stuff where he gets his body, and he probably gets a little bit of an advantage because of his height or lack of height. He's able to get his shoulder into people to create a little space, and he's always is in a situation where his defender doesn't want to foul him. They want to be long and really be up high on him. Remember who started on him now, Luke? Leon Bond started on this guy. And Coach knew he was going to. He said it to you in the pregame. And so he's not getting guarded by guys his size most of the time this time of the year. His ability to still get his shot off in the mid-range, which is not a high percentage shot. I mean, it's really not. You talk about Coach Schertz and his philosophy and why his success has been so much at Indiana State, now at St. Louis U. But that's the first thing that really impresses me. The second thing that has really impressed me is that he is not breaking. For instance, a couple of key turnovers in the first half, and Northern Iowa near the midline, up above the top of the key in open court area, they got into him, and they got the steal, and it was physical. They went through his body, and they got the steal, and I know it was Campbell once. You know what happened in the second half? And you know why they were really frustrated? Because he got into Trey Campbell's body at the same spot on the floor, just beyond the jump circle. In that jump circle area at the midline, he went through his cylinder just like they went through Southern cylinder. There was physicality. He reached, he reached through the body. He got the steal, and he just kept playing and got a big basket. Put Southern up 8 at the time at the one I'm thinking of. That's what's impressive about Kelron for me, is that he's at the top of the scouting report. He's getting the physicality that everyone says on that scouting report. You've got to be physical with him. You can't let him have space. You've got to get into his body. They're doing it, and he's finding a way to get himself shook enough to get his shot off, but he's also getting in other people's body without silly fouls. Early on, he wasn't moving his feet. We talk about Illinois State, how Coach Hawkins, a couple days before that game, he was having some real coaching love with him and getting things straightened out. Give Q a lot. It's one thing to get coached. It's another thing to accept coaching. And that's where Q has really grown, and it's very obvious in this program.
To further prove your point, Kelron House leads the Salukis on the team in terms of personal fouls drawn in league play. He has drawn 58 fouls in league play. Him and Jalen are somewhat neck and neck. Jalen Haynes, 51 personal fouls drawn as well. Only one offensive foul that Kelron House has been called for within the league. He's only had one personal offensive foul called on him, which is exactly to your point, Coach Watson, what you were describing, to use his physicality to get into defenders and not be whistled for a lot of contact, yet drawing a lot of contact. Now he's got the best plus-minus as well in the league games this year, plus 46. Drew Steffi not far behind him at plus 45.
What's interesting about Q, again, when I talk to him, he's not a whole lot taller than me. Now, he's taller than me, but not by a lot. That guy can dunk the ball with ease. Now, that's not fair, Luke. I'm not that much shorter, but where another big God-given gift he has, and this is something that kind of speaks to some of his stats. He's really long. He has very long arms. He has big hands, long arms, but all that doesn't matter if you don't have a big heart, and he has got a gigantic heart. And he's a guy that his teammates are following. We talk about Caden Hawkins. When he comes in games, his teammates follow his energy level. And certainly Q is a guy that his teammates have really trust him, and they really believe in his energy level. And he's playing great basketball now.
Coach Watson, and this is why I think really speaks volumes about the win for SIU. And even though there are these are two areas that, one, they didn't have an opportunity to really show their strength or weakness. But when you turn, if going into the game, if I would have told you the Salukis will turn the ball over 18 times and they will only make one free throw, they will only attempt 3 in the game, I think you and I both know. I won't even have to ask you that question of, yeah, Southern's going to win the game. Not even just win the game. I mean, let's be honest. Southern was really in control for the majority of it. Now, Northern Iowa came back in the early portion of the second half, took that lead, and then SIU responded. But it's a group that where Southern was the team that led by as many, double digits in each of the halves in this game. But to me, if you say you're going to turn over 18 times and you're only going to shoot 3 free throws and make 1, I mean, I don't know if I even think that you're even in the game, let alone winning.
No, you could have said, what's the spread on that? And yeah, I would first think 20 at that place. But you'd also have to add another stat that I just didn't see coming. At Northern Iowa, that without Tristan Smith, and Tristan Smith is a real X factor for Northern Iowa. He gives them a thick 6'6" utility player. He's a forward guard, whatever, but he's a dive on the floor. He concerns me that he takes a guy's legs out, but he just play, and it's not dirty. It's just he'll get into you now. If you try to bend over and pick it up with Tristan Smith, you're going to be in surgery on Monday morning, and I'm not kidding. You can't – when he's on the floor, you got to be first to the floor because he's coming. But with a team like Northern Iowa, it was totally different in their building versus what our fans saw at the Banterra Center. To turn them over 14 times after they had been turned over 15 times for Trey Campbell, who you guys know how much respect Luke and I have for him, and I know you have the same respect. To turn him over 6 times to only 2 assists,
yeah,
those go right along. That's why I thought there were 2 really key segments in the game. Now 3. I think the end of the half is always an important time for momentum. And that's where Northern Iowa, we had Southern and got them down, and they were able to cut the lead to 3. Southern made a shot to go to 3, 33-30. Northern Iowa came out. The crowd was definitely in it. They didn't go home at halftime. And I was just hoping, man, just weather this 5 minutes. Sure enough, Northern Iowa were in a really good place. An old play that Bob Knight ran for Steve Alford called a flat triangle, where you have 2 guards on top, 2 postmen on the blocks. And Weisbrod did a figure 8, and it's really it's not a set play. It's going to catch on the right wing. There's a couple actions to it. One is, you're going to take whatever route to wherever the opening is, and he found the opening, the separation. I think Drew was guarding him, and Drew did a good job. It's hard to guard, and then if you don't have a shot, you're looking for a postman to overhelp and what's called showing past the shoulders of your man, and there was going to be a quick slip pass inside for a dunk. Well, they take the 3, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, man, they are on fire here. And Southern at the first media timeout, they had not, as Coach described perfectly in our postgame show, Southern lost no ground. At the first media timeout, Southern was up 3. And I thought I thought those 2 segments were really key. And then certainly in the last minute, when the game got a little squirrely, Southern had a 3-possession lead, 8 points. Didn't get a bucket. I think had a turnover. And I know they had a travel that led to Northern Iowa's 16.9 on the clock, but they did a nice job. Northern Iowa went back to some old school stuff they used to do when McDermott was coaching and Jake was the assistant. There's one year they ran triangle and 2 all the time because they weren't very good defensively. And frankly, believe it or not, man, those are hard things to get ready for on a 2-day prep. When you're going against a team that does something totally different. Drake's old press with Dr. Tom and the 1-2-2 defense, because you don't see much zone and you don't see anybody staying in it more than 2 made baskets. But Northern did a nice job in that stretch that caused Southern to it was something funky that they really hadn't practiced, and it's not anybody's fault. As coaches, we all see teams that it's not like they wanted to do it. I mean, Jake didn't want to go to a diamond. I think he did a box and 1 once and triangle and 2, but it's not like Jake wants to do that. It's like, man, we're going to do something. We're going to get beat by more than 3 possessions at home on senior day. And it played out.
And I also, I would have liked to ask him too, because it was right before Drew Steffi's travel, which was, right in front of us. I don't know if they were trying to foul Drew. I know they were trapping him, but man, Drew got fouled. And I honestly think in a way they maybe were trying to send a guy to the line where Drew was shooting well that night, and we're not, just stating the obvious here. He's not been the most consistent free throw shooter either. And in that game, I'm sure probably Coach say, hey, be aggressive, and if you foul him, okay, like make him earn it at the line, and we'll go from there. That, of course, didn't happen, and ultimately led to the travel. Look, and this is not because look, we know how hard it is to officiate games in our league, which is why we tip the cap to those guys that do it on a night in, night out basis, because they're really hard. I thought the travels on Southern were legit. You did too. Like those were fine. Now, I do think there was one missed on the final possession, and that's what you were alluding to with Schweiger when he got down low. We're probably talking about a non-call on a on a shot attempt there late where it looked like he clearly drug his foot. Didn't happen. Okay, those things are going to happen when you go throughout the course of the game. But my point is, and before we put the finishing touches on this game, Coach Watson, is that's why I was really proud about the group and the team because and I was emotional during the game as you can get caught up into it as an announcer, as a fan of the game. The guys did it. It was, hey, next play mentality. You can preach that all you want, and you can say that all you want, and you can talk about it at length with your guys. It is hard to not get caught up in those moments, and that's what was great about this team is that because guess what? Coach Jacobson said this after the game, and he was spot on, and I thought his post game was great, by the way, was this is how it's going to feel the rest of the way. Like these are the games you're going to be in. The season's coming down to the brink here. When you get to St. Louis and hey, it is win or your season's done, that's how it's going. That type of emotion and the emotional swings, that's how these games are going to feel from this point on.
I think it's so important you brought that up, the mental toughness part and the playing hard. Those things work together. And back to Q. Q had a situation where in that stretch when Southern was up 8, one of those turnovers, I believe, is that when he came off a single curl cut, he got bumped hard. And you saw him go, like that. And then that was it. It was, okay, your point is great. I'm going to reiterate it. They did not get caught up in the uncontrollables. And that's a sign of a good team, man. We're talking about good and great. And that 07 team and that number you had where we're third in the country at that, and we were really that good. Look, we were fouling people every possession, and there's plenty of coaches that will back me up on that one. And there's no stat that says it, but we all lived it. But that was why that was a great team. Great teams don't win the NCAA. I mean, good teams don't win the NCAA tournament. Ever. There's never been a good team, excuse me, that's ever won the NCAA tournament. It's only great ones. And there's a pretty big line between great and really good, and then really good and good. Okay? I don't know where we fit in all that, but I know this, the mindset Southern's gone to in Iowa, which it was cold, it was Iowa, it was 5-day road swing. It was meals and hotels and all that stuff. For our guys to be locked in those games, we can't brag on them enough for what we just saw. And as Jake said, that's the way it is, man. It's going to be physical, and you got to earn it. And if you break just a little bit, like I described in the Drake game with 3:10 to go, you're done. It is over. Because once one guy breaks, the other 4 say, playing 5-on-4 because that guy's checked out. And all of a sudden it's like, are you kidding me? 4 of us can beat a good Southern team with 5? No way. And that's where you got to hand to Southern, and let's just see if we can stay on board for as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get in, to some of the numbers in terms of what the game meant in terms of the KenPom metrics and all of that. But, what's great is when you have these type of moments, when you get to travel with the guys specifically like we do. Most of the games that we drive to, we connect and try to connect and drive, and we're not necessarily on the bus. But when we do fly, we're with the team virtually for the whole trip, outside of your private jet that you got to get you from Lincoln to Cedar Falls on Saturday, which was great. And we thank your sponsors for that. We'll get to the sponsor reads in a matter of a moment. But and again, it's I talk about with Davion Sykes on the coaches show this week that will come out on Tuesday, and it's a point. And I know you've been around it too, Coach Watson. It's probably different when you've been a head coach versus an assistant on teams like this. But I've said this from the summer. You can remember there's been multiple times where I have called you and I'm like, I don't know where this team will be in terms of win or loss, but they truly love being around each other. They enjoy being in the locker room with one another. They love being on the road, hanging out. So I don't know if that doesn't guarantee you anything at all. It doesn't. And clearly it hasn't, because if that automatically guarantees a title at the end of it, obviously the regular season title is not going to happen. We'll see what happens in St. Louis. But I'm like, that's not every time. I've been a part of teams who have been not great and really are not great in terms of chemistry. And there's been teams that have been really good that I've been around and not have that. I bring all that up because when we're on the bus, which, by the way, a 3-hour delay trying to get back to the Carbondale area, there were just some flights that got jammed on in terms of the Air Charter Express and everything going through that day. So the Saluki's plane got delayed, and the only way you make sure that you have smiles after that one is you win the game, and Southern got to win, and that's the best medicine. But on the bus, as we're sitting there getting ready to get on the plane, waiting for the plane to land, the guys are just, and actually it's on their way to the restaurant, and they are just having a ball. And not just in terms of talking to each other, but they're singing songs. And they are singing them loudly. Guys are dancing in the aisles from Damian Mayo and others. And I've not been a part of a bus like that in a long, long time. And honestly, really, if ever, in that regard. We bring all that up is because that's stuff that the fans just don't see. And the fans see the game day. And the game day is important. And these guys no doubt understand they haven't won as many games as they would have hoped at this point. And they wanted senior night this week to be a game where it could be extremely more memorable than what it could be they all get that. But I really wanted to talk about this with you because, one, you were there, and just to get your thoughts on it as well. But if there is any reason for Saluki Nation that watches, and they do, and listens to this podcast, if you are searching for any reason to have that eternal hope that we could have just a unbelievable fun run here at the end, that on the bus and seeing the chemistry and seeing how these guys, I wish we would have videoed it, but honestly, those are moments you don't video because those are moments just for those guys to remember for days on end. But the point of the matter being, that was really a moment for me, Coach Watson, after a big win, where I'm like, this group believes, man. And they really enjoy being around each other, and that gives me a ton of optimism and hope that I hope we can bring to our fans. That don't count this group out, man. Don't think that they got their spring break tickets already booked and saying, hey, what's next? Because this group really does love being around each other.
I am so happy you brought that up, Luke, because I didn't know how you felt about it when we were sitting on that bus, and I didn't know how the coaches felt about it. And frankly, as an old guy who's been on a lot of those buses, both wins and losses, and early in the season, late in the season, I didn't care how any of you guys felt, because I felt incredibly proud, to the point where I have a really good friend that I talked to the next day we got home, and I go, man, I wish you could have been on that bus to hear those guys. Number one, what really impressed me, I bet they knew the words to 25 different songs because they were just ripping them. I don't know the words to one song. Now, if you want to, where my weird brain goes is I started looking up like the IQs of Snoop Dogg and Lady Gaga and some people. Those people are geniuses. Like people that know words to songs and actors that really put things together. Those people are a little sharp in the OR-dub deal right there. So. Number one, I'm thinking, man, these guys might be pretty smart because they know the words to a lot of songs. And number two, it was so easy. It was just fun, and they were having fun. And it wasn't two guys that were annoying 12 guys. It was the group in the middle of it. And the other thing was, this wasn't like wasn't like everything went super smooth. You just win a couple games, you get on the bus, and we've talked about Justin Inslee, and how he manages those trips, and it's like, hey, before we left
McLeod.
Northern Iowa, yeah, McLeod, it's like, hey, there's a 3-hour delay, and normally it's like, are you kidding me? Because you already had plans. We're going to be back in Marion at 10 o'clock, and the other thing is, these dudes travel first class now. I mean, I don't care if you wonder how this place operates. They travel first class, and those charter flights are unbelievable. But you're thinking, 3-hour delay. I already had plans to meet somebody and all this stuff. Man, Inslee did a great job of getting the team and all of us in the group to a place where you had pizza and wings and watching Illinois State and Bradley and Illinois and UCLA and every other game and MMA and everything else you can think of on TV. And they were having a good time there. And the people in the place, they knew us. They knew we were. One guy bet on us. We were so proud that Saluki's made him a bunch of money, and he didn't share any with us. But that was cool. But man, on that bus to hear those guys singing, we do not have a bad locker room, folks. And for those of you that I went on about getting out of the locker room, thank you for doing that, because you've left your kids or your clients or whoever it is in a good spot, and those guys are in a good place, and let's just continue it.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal experience. And as you said, as great, Justin Inslee does a phenomenal job. We all know that in making that trip seem so seamless coming back. But we will not allow him to come on this podcast and do his top 5 restaurant rankings.
Oh my God,
top
he's a
5
mess.
pizza. He's a mess. Like,
what's crazy, Luke? He would be fine with giving us the top 5, but then where he goes and what he likes, it's like Red Baron Pizza's like his number 1 food group. It's like, what is the matter with you, man? And he feeds us like we're kings and queens and princes and princesses, whatever. But his own choices are a mess.
Absolute mess, and he knows that. And as he's listening to this and watching this, I'm sure his own family members are going, yeah, we know that too. When it comes to Justin. So, kind of our final notes before we get into the league as the whole. Look at the schedule, and we'll preview Indiana State here on Wednesday. 5 KenPom top 100 wins now for SIU. Now that of course fluctuates because there are some teams like Illinois State, for example. Right now, they're kind of right on that cutting line. They're at 98 right now on the year. But here is what is just amazing when you think about this, Coach Watts, is you just look at the rest of the league. And some of this is a great frustration because take a team like Belmont, for example. Nevada probably doesn't schedule them. Some of these other teams like that Southern's had the opportunity to play. Just like everyone talks about Miami of Ohio right now. I get so irritated when I hear really good voices in our game, like that are popular voices, main voices, and they're ripping Miami, Ohio's schedule. And it's like, if you win 25 games or more, or 20, whatever, if you have a good season at our level, doesn't matter what your roster looks at next year, you're not going to get teams to play it. And that's exactly what Casey's going through at Belmont. So my point is, when I say this, it's not to be like, yeah, Southern's the only one that has these amount of wins, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's also because Southern's had a lot of cracks and bites at the apple. But 5 KenPom top 100 wins. Those are at High Point, at Belmont, UNI at home, at Illinois State, and at Northern Iowa. That's more than the rest of the league. And actually, they have 4 KenPom top 100 wins on the road. That's more than anybody else in the league has too. Belmont tied with Bradley and UIC with 3 apiece. Murray, and this is where it's just so, and Murray's got a chance to redeem themselves here down the stretch. Murray hasn't beaten a top 100 KenPom team in league play. Their lone 2 top 100 KenPom wins are Akron on a neutral court. Good win. Akron's a good team, 68 in KenPom. And then George Washington out of the A10. Valpo has 2, Indiana State has 2, and then Illinois State with just 1, which was Northern Iowa, and they'll get an opportunity to sweep the Panthers here coming up in the league schedule. But then taking another step further, let's look at Southern as a program over the last 5 seasons, counting last year, the first year under Coach Nagy. How many top 100 KenPom wins has Southern had in the last 5 years combined? 5. 1 against Indiana State in 2024. That was when Indiana State was nationally ranked at the time, too. 2 in 2023. That was at Oklahoma State, and then Drake in Carbondale. And in 2022, there were two, Colorado in that MTE, and then Bradley, which is the last time the Salukis beat Bradley, was in 2022, which was also in Carbondale. None in 2021. And again, there were times those seasons were, that's why I brought up the point of those numbers fluctuate. Like there were times when you see a team, they may have been top 100, but they ultimately fall out. So those are numbers in terms of when the season ended. That's how many top 100 KenPom games that Southern's had. Man, to think that you've won 5 with no opportunities here in the last 2 games, but obviously you'll have a chance in St. Louis, you hope, against some teams that you can play. But man, like, and again, I'm not trying to dilute this to get this into a scheduling conversation, et cetera, because we can have that all day. But man, that is a massive, massive number, and something you can just not turn down and be like, okay, that's whatever. Like, no, I mean, like to beat those type of teams and to do that consistently, that's something that just Southern hasn't had the opportunity to do, but also hasn't done consistently enough lately.
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind when you bring that setup is why. Okay, why this team as opposed to any of the other? I mean, Damascus Jones and Brown and Xavier, that group was good. I mean, okay, so why? And that team sure seemed to be a good defensive team. But again, I don't have the numbers in front of me. You don't have it. That part doesn't matter. Here is why this is important. Only one of those 5 wins did our opponent and us score over 70 points. It was high point. I think it was 86-84. The others are in the 60s and 50s. Look, we all like seeing the ball go in the basket. And, man, our defense gets more efficient when the ball goes in the hole on our end. No doubt about it. But what Southern Illinois fans understand, what our culture understands in Southern Illinois, and I would like to think it was probably Jack Hartman that really created. But again, I'm not the one to be able to validate that. But I know it's gone on ever since Coach Hartman's era in the 60s, because people talk about their defense, and Walt Frazier talks about, that was the reason why he went to the NBA as one of the greatest defensive players ever, and he gives a lot of credit to Coach Hartman for that and that mindset. But my point is, to our fans and those that are listening that don't quite understand what they're wanting and wishing, man, you got to guard. You have to guard. Now you got to score. To be good, you have to guard. And we're good. We are a good team. And our record shows that we're 14-15. Let's not get ahead of ourselves on really good or great. Hang on, okay? But we're good, okay? And we got to be over 500 to really validate good. But here's the thing. If you're wanting something like, oh, we need to score points. I want to score points. I want ice cream after dinner. You got to eat your vegetables first, man. I mean, you got to guard. And yes, it is more fun and to see those dunks and those fast breaks off our defense. But when you beat the teams you're talking about beating, I mean, you're not going to get a lot of fast breaks on Northern Iowa. You know why? Because they really guard. That's what makes those 2 wins so impressive. Yeah, Jake's team wasn't great at the Banterra Center. Missing a good player. And, in the last 20 minutes, we were very fortunate that Campbell came back. But they were playing without their best player in the last 20 minutes. And you know what we did? We got away from them with it because we played good defense. But that's why it's so important. I think Coach Nagy would be the first to agree, and I'm not the one to speak for him, but I don't think he came to this program with this kind of mindset. But once he got into it and saw it, it was obvious, and Coach Hawkins gets a lot of credit for that, but the team gets a lot of credit for how they're defending, and it's a big reason because of the numbers we're preventing teams from scoring that gives our chance to score. And look, let's not kid ourselves. We are challenged on the offensive end. We're not a good three-point shooting team. We're not nearly good enough free throw. Man, we have earned those 5 wins. I know that.
No question about it, and those are numbers that we know are going to play a factor at some point in these games, and they have. Like you said, if you just shoot, even an average percentage from 3, I mean, how many more of those games that Southern has lost would be completely flipped? We know that, and we've lived that. And we don't need to continue to talk about that. 59-57 was the final over UNI. Then, of course, 66-61 over Drake last week, pulling off the road sweep for only the second time in program history when they played those teams consecutively. Coach Watson, one other point before we get to the league standings and what's happened in the league. This is more talking about the league as a whole. And I brought it up to you before we were recording, and we hear so much, about from a lot of folks, and some are really good friends of ours. I just don't think the league's any good. Um, the league is really good, and I hope this number really speaks to it. Now, Southern, these are not going to be 2 easy games. So what I am saying right now, that this is not, making anything out of more than what it needs to be. But even right now, you can say, okay, because if the season ended today, there's still 7 teams that have won double-digit games within the league. That would be a record. Now, you may be, Luke, you're playing 20 league games now. It's a little bit easier to do that. Okay, there's somewhat of that. Last year, there were 2 teams that finished 10-10, and then you had there were 6 teams a year ago that won at least 10 games. There were 6 as well the year prior to that. You go the first year when you were doing 10 or more games, there were also, I believe that would have been 7 teams that year won 10 games or more. So right now that would tie in terms of the 20-game league schedule. That year, by the way, was 22-23. That was Murray was 11-9, Missouri State 12-8, Indiana State was 13-7, SIU was 14-6, with Belmont 14-6, Drake was 15-5, and then Bradley was 16-4. But I bring all that up because if SIU can win their last 2 games, that would be 8 of your 11 league teams have 10 wins or more. And again, the league schedule used to be an 18-game league schedule for the most part. To go back to even find a year that was even equivalent to this would have been 2006. So 05-06, that season, you had Wichita State win the regular season. They were 14-4. Missouri State, who got hosed and didn't get into the NCAA tournament, they finished second. They were 12-6. You on staff at SIU finished tied with Missouri State at 12-6. Creighton was also 12-6 that year, tied as well. Then you had Bradley, who finished 11-7. And then you had Northern Iowa at 11-7. You had 6 teams that year win 11 or more games. And just look at the teams that went to the NCAA tournament, by the way. Wichita, Sweet 16. Bradley, Sweet 16. 4 teams went to the NCAA tournament. 2 of them went to the Sweet 16, and Wichita ended up getting upset by George Mason, who, by the way, went to the Final Four that year in that magical run that they had. So my point is, in bringing up, again, kind of the comparison in the years here, I mean, you may have 8 teams. Again, Salukis are going to have to do a lot here to win these last 2 games to get them to 10-10. We're going to have Kevin Lehman on later on this week and enjoying to have Kevin on and talk about the league as a whole. And I'd be curious to hear his perspective on that. But I mean, to have the potential of 8 of your 11 league teams with double-digit wins, which is 500 or better, man, you got to go back a long time in the league. And by the way, that was the most in terms of the 18 game. And that's just in the Ken Palm era. So I only went back to 1997. But to have those 6 teams win 11 games or more that year within the league, and you saw what the league did. You had 4 teams make the NCAA tournament. 2 of them made the Sweet 16. I'm just going to be blunt and honest. I don't want to hear about how this league ain't any good because this league is good. The teams are showing it. And man, they have the potential, and it's on Southern to prove it. But if this league finishes with 8 of your 11 teams with 10 wins or more, man, why are more people not talking about that?
Because they don't understand that we have our league, the Missouri Valley, has the 9th best non-conference record in the country. That is why we keep saying that is the biggest reason why we're the 9th best team in the country, and it's because 8 through 1 had good non-conference schedule, the best you can. Like for instance, to that point, and you mentioned a while ago about Miami of Ohio not scheduling, and it does kill them when they. And the only argument I would have with Coach Steele is that they played 3 non-Division I's. Okay, are you telling me that schools wouldn't buy you? Now, I hate it. I'm the number Doug Elgin in the previous era, and we're going to get to 06 in a second because it's important why basketball is the way it is. Missouri Valley in 06 had 2 areas where they really changed basketball. We'll get that in a second. But scheduling is impossible. It always has been. Back when I was with Coach Herron, Doug Elgin's leadership, he's the guy we got to get on, because he's the genius of this thing, of getting us to understand how we have to schedule the non-conference. And it's hard. I mean, look, you've never made one phone call for scheduling. I've done it year after year for 5 straight months, if not longer, with a landline phone, because there were no cell phones. Now, I really don't have a lot of concern for coaches now, because they can go anywhere they want with their cell phone and communicate. I was stuck in that offense, and believe me, I could hear crickets in there. And it wasn't fun from April, because I couldn't recruit. I was a non-recruiter. I couldn't be on the road back in that era. So I would be there from April through August, literally making phone calls on landline phones, getting the same answer. And it's impossible. And the big thing Doug said was, we can't be bought. You can't get bought, because once you get bought, then the Power Fives, Power Fours at the time, they're just going to wait on you. They're just going to wait, and whatever the number's going to be. And the number wasn't a big deal anyway to them ever, and it's really not now. So Miami, Ohio laid an egg, because while I hate to see us get bought this year twice, I understand it. I get it, because it's different. And the 20 league games across the boards change that as well. So scheduling's complicated. But the 06 year you're talking about, 2 things really happened. Number one, Missouri Valley started taking the Power 4 and Power 5 money. All of a sudden, it's like that 6-year check that comes from residuals throughout, that was going to Missouri Valley, and they said, we can never let that happen again. And by golly, they're making that happen. When I see a team like UCLA, who's they're a really good team. And how they do in our league? They do just fine in our league, probably win our league, okay? Let's just face it. They probably, some would say, UCLA fans, of course we'd win your league. We'd go undefeated. Well, that wouldn't happen. But
no.
All that said, by beating Illinois at home, great win for them. They earned it. Illinois is really good. They're on the cusp of being a great team, okay? They get themselves in at being, I think, the 8th team. I think they're close to being 9-9, or maybe they're 10-8 now. But they're in. They're a lock. They're 500 lock. That's not happened for the Valley. The other thing that changed in 06, led by Bruce Weber and Chris Lowry and Matt Painter and the players that bought in the way we guarded, we were fouling we were guarding the heck out of you. You know about tough. I mean, we were tough. We played hard. And, man, nobody liked that. And so we were able to advance. I mean, Wichita didn't play that aggressive defensively. They were super skilled. Bradley was a really good team in 06. They get the Sweet 16. They had the big guy, Patrick O'Brien, and they were very good. But our league changed a lot of college basketball, because we were good, we were tough, and nobody was willing to play us. But somehow, and I'll give Kowalczyk a lot of credit for getting the Indiana game at home, because it was a football deal. Their Indiana football needed to move a date, and he said, we'll do it if you place a home and home, and we got it that way. We had to get creative. Somehow we've got to get creative in getting some really impressive games back, but it's getting harder and harder. So back to our league and being good. Come on, if you don't get it, I don't know what else we can say to you to get you to understand. Our league is good. Our non-conference is as good as it can be. All in all, we've got to schedule better at home, and it's hard to do. But next year, we fix that problem with having Richmond and High Point coming back. It's hard to schedule, but all in all, you got to win them, and we did it.
We may be getting Highland. I don't know. I mean,
Highland tomorrow.
There's a couple years where you've been like we've had Highland on the schedule. So
Highland runs a good offense, Luke. I know High Point does. So does Highland.
And
a couple of good shooting guards over there.
Look, obviously the mega conferences have no doubt changed scheduling a ton in terms of getting a lot of those games back when you're talking about in the day, especially in your days of calling the games and calling everybody up on landlines. I was hearing Travis Steele, who's the head coach at Miami, talk about their schedule was not finalized till the end of October. And he's like, because he did not want to have to do 3 non-once because he knew exactly this is not going to look good. And this is not what they wanted to do either. And this is where it gets into the point, and I throw Belmont in this. I mean, like, it's so frustrating when you see, and we saw the eventual national champion a year ago, and we know the night in, night out basis of the grind of the SEC and those type of leagues, as you said, what Coach Painter's got to go through on a nightly basis in the Big Ten, to all of these. Is it different? No question. It is completely different. But if you're telling me that team number 10, team number 11, when you start really getting, I know for me, and look, is this a biased take? Absolutely it is. I'm not trying to say this is a completely unbiased take. But I would much rather see Belmont. I'd much rather see Miami of Ohio. I'd much rather see those teams that clearly in their league are winning at a high level over those teams that, let's just be quite honest, are mediocre within their league towards the bottom. That when you're seeing these teams that still have hope and they're below 500 and most likely will be below 500 within their league at the end of the year. We could talk about this all day, Coach Watson, but I mean, that's for me where I get frustrated. And yeah, no doubt a lot of it is where you're at because you're at a school like that. But that's where I feel for Travis Steele and I feel for Casey Alexander. And like you talk about the pressure on those dudes when these conference tournaments start, within a week or so. I mean, saw a good friend Josh Schertz live it at Indiana, the really great team he had at Indiana State when I was here at our first year. I feel for those dudes, man, when you have a great team, and we're talking about really, like you talk about the difference between, great and good, and great teams win in March, no doubt. But when you're winning at those high of clips, man, they're at least knocking on that door. Maybe they're not quite great, but you're knocking on that door. Man, you feel for them. You do, because you just hate it when you just see the way college basketball is right now, because it frustrates you. It frustrates me as a fan of this league.
Yeah, I think the TV people will roll their eyes at our conversation saying, you guys just don't know the numbers. The numbers show that the ratings, everything's driven on the ratings. And because there are so many more Power 5 alums and Power 5 interest and betting in the Power 5s and all those things, you guys just don't understand at the mid and low major what you're talking about. But I've yet to come across a single human being that has said to me that they didn't enjoy Valpo's win on the home run play, regardless of what Coach Drew really calls it, okay? Or didn't like Hampton's big win one year or those things. So I've never heard a fan say to me, I'm not really that interested on the first Thursday and Friday of the NCAA tournament, but boy, that second one, when it gets down to 16, now I start getting dialed in. I'm yet to have that conversation with a human being, and maybe it's just because I'm not in New York or one of the major media areas, but I don't think I'm off on that. All that said, it's here to stay. You've got to be great to get yourself your foot in the door, and I will tell you, don't be surprised with whoever advances out of St. Louis, and let's just cross our finger for some weird reason Belmont were to get an at-large if that doesn't happen. But don't be surprised with the success of whoever it is that plays in that first weekend in the NCAA tournament.
Well, and as we've talked about on a weekly basis, daily basis, when you get into the league, what also you have to do is when you get that opportunity is you got to win games, and you got to win games in the tournament to have success and to get that respect. I think that's why when you look at the Missouri Valley Conference and you see what they've done throughout the years, they have won games in the tournament. Drake, of course, obviously last year being able to knock off Mizzou. But we can all say, hey, you deserve this, you deserve that. Indiana State had to do it the year they didn't get in the NCAA tournament. They had to go on a run, and they did. Made it all the way to the NIT title game in a phenomenal game that year against Seton Hall. But again, Valley has a 13-4 record in the first round. Including Drake, when you go back to 2025, Valley is 13-4 in the NCAA tournament dating back to 2012. So my whole thing is when I say that you got to win games, the Valley's done that. And that's what's really infuriating is when you talk about this of, hey, do you deserve this? Do you deserve that? When the Valley gets bids, they win. And that's even going back to obviously teams that aren't in the league anymore, but Loyola going all the way to the Final Four. Obviously Wichita State as well, and those great teams. Anyways, that's enough of that conversation. We can talk about that all day, which, shocker, we get off track just a little bit, Coach Watson. That never happens here on the show.
We love basketball. Who cares?
We love it. All right, let's go through the games for the Missouri Valley Conference. We'll make this part quick. Bradley, 74-60. They were up big. Then all of a sudden it got closer towards the end. I know it's always fun, in these rivalry games, fan bases going back and forth. But to me, above anything, 74-60 win for Bradley was a massive win for them. Jaquan Johnson, shocker, 23 points was a huge factor in the game, the bully being the bully. Just great to see a great crowd. 10,000 plus fans, amazing. Big thumbs up to the Bradley faithful. I know it's a rivalry game, so I know there were Redbird contingent that were there too. But above anything, it was a really good game, great college basketball game with Bradley getting the win. But just it really warms the heart because that's what we need in this league, man. We need places to have that type of energy as much as we can on a night in, night out basis.
It's infectious, Luke. I mean, when people in our league, they watch other league games. That's the one advantage of, more than one advantage, but certainly an advantage of ESPN Plus. And all of a sudden, I got to believe that's going to be part of the reason why we're going to have a great crowd on Wednesday with Indiana State. But fans will, they're competitive too, man. They I know Saluki fans are. They'll be like, Bradley's fine. They're not as good as we are, and that's what we need. Let's be competitive and let's show out ourselves.
Bradley with that win, now 19-10 overall, 12-6 in the Valley standings. Illinois State 18-11, dropped to 10-8 in the Valley. Again, we'll get to the conference standings in a moment. How about them Beacons, man? Congratulations to Roger Powell and their group. It's the most wins they've ever had since joining the Missouri Valley Conference, and all they did was go on the road and win in a venue that's really hard to win at. 71-67 win over the UIC Flames. Cheney, 12 points. Pettigrew, 11 points, 6 rebounds. How about Cheney as a guard spot? Got 7 rebounds, Coach Watson, in the game. Not very often you see a team get more offensive rebounds than UIC, and Valpo did. They won the offensive boards, 13-12 in that game. Sean Tupuola had a great game as well, 10.6 rebounds, and then Servilis off the bench with 13 points. Justin McNair had 11 points. I know Isaiah Barnes in that game had a phenomenal dunk that really made a lot of headway as well. But, man, there are, I really believe that SAU is one of those teams that those top seeds don't want to see came St. Louis. Man, Valpo, they are right in the thick of it, man. We're going to get to the standings in a moment, but they have a great opportunity here to potentially get themselves into the bye and get into Friday.
One thing, something stuck out to me, you mentioned one of them, that we know how much UIC values offensive rebounding. And you had mentioned at Valpo 13-12, they won that part of it. The other part that was super impressive, Valpo went to the free throw line 25 times, hit 19 on the road. UIC, very good free throw shooting team. In mid-70s for the league play, they were 11 of 18. It's just like, I know we keep talking about those in keys, but they are just, you can't overstate or underlook the obvious. Those areas, and I'll talk about this a little bit with Indiana State later about how important turnovers and offensive rebounding are in terms of your success. But Valpo's they are playing with a lot of poise for a young team. The 2 freshman starters that are Pettigrew and Cheney are so important to them, along with, everybody else. I always look at McNair first. I think he's the most important guy being a senior.
Evansville on the road against Murray State. Racers win it 88-75. But Coach Miller's group deserves a huge tip of the cap because this game did not start well for them. 8 minutes in, they're down 14, 24-10 at home with a ton of emotion. Obviously, that's a group that's had a lot of high expectations for them this year. And also further proves the point that, man, don't count any win before you actually go out and earn it. Because Evansville, again, extremely shorthanded, only 7 players in the game. A.J. Casey was really big with 19 points. Leif Muller scored double figures. 4 of their starting 5 scored in double figures besides Quinnett. We know how good Quinnett is because we saw that firsthand. But of all guys who have, I don't want to say most important for Murray in this stretch, but KJ Tenner has played at a really high clip for them. He had 20 points, tied with Roman Doman for the game high. He played 39 minutes in that game. KJ Tenner has been playing a really pivotal role for this Racer team here. Even when it's gotten a little rocky and they haven't necessarily gotten wins, he's been an essential part of their team. He earns the start. Murray gets the win as they pull away from Evansville 88-75.
I thought Tenner was the X factor when Murray State played really well at the Banterra Center. just he came in and gave them 40 great minutes at the point guard spot. It doesn't surprise me a bit to see how well he played in these games. But, another guy in that game, Alex Hemingway, busted his nose at our place. And I thought, man, that's an injury that could maybe set you out for the rest of the way. And he goes for 14 points. He was a big part of why Evansville was really dangerous in that game. And it comes back to what we'll talk about here in a bit about when you've got a team that can make threes. You can find lightning in a bottle in a 40-minute game. And Murray held on and came back and put the game away.
Belmont, they clinched the regular season championship. Coach Casey Alexander and his group with their 25th win of the season, their 15th in league play. They beat Indiana State, who we'll talk about here in just a matter of moments. 87-70 was the final in the win. Sycamores hung around for a bit there in the first half before Belmont went on a big run and was able to pull away. Jack Smiley, again, led him in points. He is trending towards freshman of the year in the league, and no doubt deservingly so. Brigham Rogers scored double figures off the bench as well. But Drew Sharnowski, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, impacted the game in so many ways. Tyler Lundblade, 11 points in the game, had 3 threes in the game as well, scored double figures. As Belmont gets the win, Derek Vorst did return for Indiana State, so that's a note for Saluki fans, at least getting ahead here. The Sycamores coming in on Wednesday. Ian Scott, who I think is just a tremendous player for the Sycamores, 16 points, 11 rebounds in the game, did all he could to try to keep Indiana State in it. But Belmont, clearly the best team in the league. Coach Watson over this 20-game schedule, and they had an opportunity now to potentially win 17 games here with 2 big ones here to close it out.
We've talked about depth all year long of all the teams in the Valley, but I'm not sure anyone's depth. Maybe Valpo could be in this argument, but certainly the quality of depth of Belmont, especially the amount of scoring that they can bring in. You spoke of Smiley, who starts sometimes. He's now coming off the bench, but just, you got Dylan coming off the bench, who could also be freshman of the year. You've got so many freshman of the year candidates on that team, but I just marvel at their quality players in their program, that they're starters for nearly everyone else.
Those were the games on Saturday. So now the conference standings look like this. And man, oh man, you remember when we talked about how I kept telling you there's going to be a log jam at some point in the league standings? Well, it has formed. Not Belmont. Belmont, of course, they clinch the outright championship with the win, up 3 games, with just 2 games left for them. But here is where it gets interesting. You have Bradley at 12-6. They're a half game up of Murray State right now. They still play each other. 12-6 Bradley, Murray State 12-7 on the year, just a half game back in the loss column. Then you have UIC tied in the loss column, but a half game back in the win column against Murray, 11-7 UIC. Then you have 3 teams at 10-8, Illinois State, UNI, and Valpo, all at 10-8. Illinois State and UNI, they'll play each other here on Wednesday. Pretty much feels like whoever loses that game may be on the outside looking in when it comes to Friday. And again, you got the Beacons just right there sitting in a spot with 2 games left as well, with a chance. Coach Watson, depending on how these games go, even a team like Bradley right now at 12-6, they can't rest comfortably with these games because Valpo's within still striking distance of them. You have the Beacons to Bradley, so from 2 all the way down to 7, separated by 2 games. Wow. What a jam there in the league stands with, of course, Southern 2 games back of Valpo, and Drake, Indiana State, and Evansville right now at 9, 10, and 11, respectively.
Oh, Bradley's fine. Oh, they only have to go to UIC, and they got Murray at home. That's an automatic win. I mean, no, it's been that way all year long. I mean, give Belmont a lot of credit, man. That's a team. January 4th, none of us were ready to dust the trophy case off for those guys to put one down because they didn't score well against Southern, and Southern played a really terrific game, much like we saw in Iowa. But just up and down the line there, it's amazing. It's going to be interesting to see who's actually playing on Thursday. It'll be that's the part that's really going to be something that might still be a little shocking.
Well, you look at the games, and you brought it up on Tuesday. We're recording this on Monday. Podcast should be out Monday night. Bradley will play at UIC. It's a big game for both those teams. Virtually, it seems like the winner pretty much gets locked in to Friday, at least. Neither of those teams, if they win, if you get to 13 wins, you're not, or I know UIC technically still only at 11-7 right now, but I think for them, especially with the tiebreaker scenario, they would have swept Bradley. They'd be in a position where they'd be in a good spot to potentially be in there. But Bradley, for sure, Bradley gets the win on Tuesday night. They're most likely going to be okay and going to be in the Friday. It just depends on their seed line, too. Then you look at the games on Wednesday. Yeah, the Illinois State at Northern Iowa, a big game there. McLeod Center, Coach Watson at 6 o'clock. Evansville will travel to Belmont. Again, the Bruins have already wrapped up the regular season title, but as you said, there's still a outside shot, potentially being an at-large, so they can ill afford any loss at home, especially to Evansville. That would end all at-large conversations for them. Drake at Valpo. Again, the Arc, Valpo with an opportunity to close out their home schedule, and the Arc is starting to get revived under Coach Powell. And then, of course, Indiana State will be traveling over here to Carbondale for that game on Wednesday. But as we were kind of talking about Coach Watson, from Bradley all the way to Valpo, there is no team right now in our league outside, and I say even Belmont, but Belmont's playing still for a chance of getting at large. Like, that's also a good way to judge the health of your league, man, because there is no games here as you enter the final week where there's a team being like, yeah, we can coast.
And having been in that thing for 21 years at Southern Illinois on the assistant coaching side, it doesn't matter. I think my first year in 88-89 season, I think we were a 6 seed. And we get to the championship game playing 3 at Wichita. Wichita was supposed to win it going away at home. They had the tournament at home. They were, they were ranked, I think, preseason type thing. And it was a foregone conclusion that Wichita was going to win our tournament and go to the NCAA tournament. They get upset first round, and get this, they were having talk shows back in those days. And the discussion was, we're not going to the NIT. And we were laughing like, are you crazy? I mean, this tournament is going to be so wild because anything can happen. Us and Creighton in 89, remember that one? If Freddie doesn't dunk it off his head and goes back up through the hoop, which he should have counted anyway, who knows how history would have been written. But this tournament's been great. It's going to be great this year because if you're betting on the Valley, just don't use your kids' tuition money. That's all I ask you not to do, because it's probably not working out for you. Don't bet against Southern. I told the guy that won money on us the other night in Cedar Falls. He was talking about Southern cover. I'm like, I know this. I wouldn't bet against them. I know that's for sure. And that goes for about everybody in this league.
And if you wonder why Coach Watson has all this nice bling when he shows up on our show, because he bets on the dogs. So
I don't bet. That's the good thing. Would have caused a little problem professionally for a while, but even to this day,
yes, absolutely.
Caused a little marital issues this time of year. We started out a little quick.
Yes, that is for sure. Oh shoot, what a crazy week. This could be a lot of fun, where every game has no doubt big ramifications when it gets to the conference standings. All right, Coach Watson, let's close out on Indiana State. Again, Sycamores come in here. We talk about how it's been tough historically for Southern to win at McLeod. Man, what's ironic is Indiana State has really struggled in Carbondale, yet they have maybe the most crazy win of all time in Carbondale, where they were the team that ended the longest home win streak for the Salukis in the mid-2000s. I believe it David Moss was on that team, and it was probably the Sycamore team that you would least expect, not the Michael Minzers and Matt Rins and those teams that come. Obviously, the team that went to the NIT championship game, they lost in Carbondale that year. This hasn't been a kind building to Indiana State, but still, this is a team that for SIU, and I've said it time and time again, when SIU's trying to figure out how they want to attack teams offensively, they watch how Indiana State goes against teams because of how well and how hard they are to guard on an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, they really hang some big numbers that are impressive. But I'm going to give you several stats why there's no way Indiana State's going to win on Wednesday. Now, this is a cliffhanger because I'm going to come back to the reality. They play at 70.5 possessions. They turn it over 13 times. They only get 9 offensive rebounds. They shoot 64% from the free throw line. And for a team that shoots a lot of threes, They're shooting at a 32.8 rate. No way they're winning. You say, no way. Can't do it. Now, let me come back to reality. The reality is, and here's the scary part about Indiana State. They score 2 out of 3 baskets on assists. A lot of those are non-dribble layups that Coach Graves mentioned to us. They're scoring in league. 66% of their made field goals are off an assist. Like if you have a mindset of all the things Indiana State can't do, we use this term. They will carve you up with a bunch of guys that look like paper boys. On Southern's end, you say, well, our defense is so good, we're not going to get carved up. Look, we play good defense. There's no doubt about it. But when we start throwing numbers at you, there's one that I hope you can comprehend. But this is why it is such a fine margin for SIU. So SIU's taking care of the ball. We're rebounding. We're getting a rebound, offensive rebound, a game more than our opponent. That's really important. Okay, it sounds like a small thing, but it's really big. We're turning it over. Actually, we're getting we're getting a +1. We're getting a +1 on turnovers. Like, we've talked, we turned the ball over, we turned it over, we got to take care of the ball. Hey, we are forcing more turnovers. So we're +1 offensive rebounds and +1 on turnovers. Here's the reality. We have to do that factor against Indiana State. We've got to turn them over because they're not a great defensive team at all. But if we don't turn them over and then all of a sudden we get into the careless game, this thing gets crazy because here's the reality. The reality is, with Southern's slim margin of offense efficiency, okay, we're scoring at 0.99 points of possession. And you say, come on, that's a fine line. It doesn't really matter. Well, it's actually, we're scoring 69.7 points of possession. Okay. When we turn it over, or if you take away the turnovers, let's say you don't count the turnover possessions, we have 57.5 possessions a game. The bottom line is, as well as we are defending, our opponents are scoring because we turn them over. They're scoring at a rate that's slightly higher than what we're scoring when we don't turn it over. And I know that's kind of a jumbled mess, but what I'm saying with a team like Indiana State, if you're not hooked up and if you're thinking about the after party for senior night instead of senior night, man, this thing could be a mess because when you have a team that shoots it okay from 3 but high volumes and they get hot, that's what makes this game extremely dangerous. And it's why we keep talking there's no safe game in this league because there's not enough separation from the top to the bottom. And Indiana State is a really complicated bunch. Man, they turn it over. But in their 70.5 possessions, they turn it over more than 13 times. They shoot a very slim number between 2s and 3s, but inside the arc, they're shooting 58% inside the arc in league play. Southern's got to guard that they got to guard that line inside. They got to guard the line on the outside, but they got to really take care of the ball on the inside, which leads to a lot of their assists. So, if I'm on this staff, if I'm part of this team, which, we're in a different situation, this is a super dangerous game with Indiana State.
And you look at Indiana State second in, when you just take league games only, they are second in effective field goal percentage, 54% offensively. And like you said, Coach Watson, it's no secret, and Coach Graves sent it to us when we talked to him in round 1. Turnovers are going to be a huge indicator in this game. They were in game number 1. It wasn't that Southern shot the ball at a stupid clip in Terre Haute. They actually shot the ball really poorly. It was kind of one of those games where, Rollins was kind of struggling a little bit at the rim, at times where there are a lot of misses near the rim. That's a game that could have completely flipped. But as we said, though, Derek Vorse returns, or assuming he is going to return. He played against Belmont. We'll see how he kind of gets back. He's a terrific young man. I hope he plays just because he's such a big factor for Indiana State. But that was a factor in game number 1 between these two teams, Coach Watson. And if Derek Vorse comes back, that's only going to help Indiana State's case in this game on Wednesday.
No doubt. You've got a skilled big guy, and he doesn't live on the 3-point line, but he can stretch you. What he can do is he can make you outthink yourself on the defensive end. And all of a sudden you start playing a lineup that's not nearly effective or efficient offensively because you think, well, we got to guard Vorst because he can stretch us out. He's not that effective, but he can screw up your thinking. Not to belabor the turnover point, the three guys that have the most turnovers for Indiana State are their three leading scorers in Scott, Wagner, and Young. They lead them in scoring 14.5, 11, and 10 respectively. They also turn it over, which means, number one, you got to guard him to take away Ian Scott inside, especially off screen and slips. He finishes a lot of those assists off. You've got to get Wagner. Wagner missed some open shots against Southern that allowed Southern to extend a lead as opposed to it getting tight, and all of a sudden your offensive possessions get a little more complicated. The one tricky area where Southern's got to be super disciplined, and for by and large, they've done really well. In league games, to be more specific about where Indiana State shots come from, they shoot 27 threes a game on average. They shoot 32 twos at 58%. And that's for them to figure out. That's not for me. Their opponents have been very disciplined against them. It has a big reason why the record is what it is. Their opponents are averaging 22 threes and 39 twos. Southern's not scoring as great inside the arc as they had at one point, partly because what do you do to Southern? You really pack things in. You double team Rollins. You come with hard double team on Prince and see if he'll cough it up or what he'll do. And so they've made it tougher. You know, Q's been really good on mid-range, but he's shooting 49% in twos. But Southern's got to be disciplined at the two. They've got to make sure they go with where they're good. This may shock people, but Southern in the league, Southern's average 5 made threes a game. Now, they come in feast or famine. They're getting 10 or none. But the reality is they've got to find their average of 5. Indiana State's going to average 6.5. Now, because we don't follow them as closely, you follow them closer than anybody else outside of Terre Haute. But a guy like me think, okay, they're going to get 6.5. Well, they can also get 12. Okay? They can also get 3. But the reality is Southern's got that 5 number at 3. They've got to maintain that average. And then finally, they've got to be good at that free throw line because just because Indiana State's, they have a high number of guys that don't shoot well at the league at the free throw line. They've got some dudes starting with Camp Wagner that shoots 90 plus and some other guys. It all depends on who goes the line and who's hot that night. Southern's they've got to be good offensively against Indiana State. There's just no way around it. They've got to score points against a defense that's not great. But if you start experimenting on senior night, you know, we can't have Prince out there trying to do special things on his last night. He's got to go where he's good. His first shot cannot be from 3 because the factor is it's the trust factor with your teammates. Like, come on, dude, where's your head right now? He's got to go where he's good, and he's just one. And I'm not picking on Prince. We're not very good without Prince. It was evident in the first league games against Illinois State and Bradley. We're a much better team with him and his physicality. It's why we have a reputation that we're physical. He's a big part of it. But he's just a small sample size. We've got to be good in the lane.
Southern, another big factor in that win against Indiana State, their highest points in the paint outside of Murray State in league play, which was 56. They lost that game at Murray. 52 points in the paint in Terre Haute. And I think that's going to be no doubt a point of emphasis. And we talked about the impact of Derek Vorst. The only Sycamore, when you look at their league games, now big factors because he did not play in their most recent game. A huge fan of his effort and his motor. Enel St. Bernard. He did not play against Belmont. His last game was Northern Iowa. He is the only Sycamore in league-only games that has a positive plus-minus, +9, which it doesn't factor in. We think the world of Ian Scott, too, and the plays he has made. But Bernard's motor, if he can't go, not to say it's a trade-off if Forrest is in and Bernard is out, he's been having some shoulder issues this year throughout the year, the reason why he didn't play in our last game. But St. Bernard maybe not as a great shooter, Coach Watson, but man, there were so many plays, extra effort plays that he makes that really impacts this Sycamore team in many ways too. So if he's not in there, that's a factor for Indiana State.
Just like Tristan Smith. It's different players, okay, different skill set, but just like we spoke of in Northern Iowa being a completely different team. One, they were at home, but secondly, they brought in a bruiser like Tristan Smith. St. Bernard has got that bruiser mentality. He's not going to lie and be on the arc. He's a 40-some% shooter at the free throw line in league play. But he'll go get fast break baskets. He'll get steals. He'll finish those screen and slips when you're not paying attention. When you're looking at just his straight numbers and think he's a buster, he will buster you. Like he's a guy that I forget who was it, Luke, that he had 18 on in maybe their last win. But he was the guy. Yeah, I mean, he's the guy that broke their will and made it a 20-point win for Indiana State. So St. Bernard, you can't sleep on him.
No, and he had 14 against the Redbirds in a win for them, and also scored double figures against Murray State. So he's been capable. When you look at within league play, those are his 3 double-digit games, and the fourth one was against the Screaming Eagles of Southern Indiana. Had 10 points, 8 rebounds that day. But this will be a important one for SIU. Senior night for them. 5 seniors on the roster: Jorge, Isaiah Stafford, Jorge Marino, that is, Prince of League Bay, Damian Mayo, and Davion Sykes. Great opportunity to come out and support them here on Wednesday night, Saluki Nation. We hope you do and come out and join us. 7 o'clock tip. Our pregame coverage will begin at 6. For the Hall of Famer, Rodney Watson, I am Luke Martin. We'll talk to you Wednesday night, Saluki Nation. Go Dogs!
This has been Saluki Royalty, the official podcast for Saluki Athletics. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review however you listen. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Saluki Sports Network.